Alright, so we have Yana Kunitskaya versus Irene Aldana. Breaking in the striking of these two, so for Kunitskaya, she comes from that Taekwondo background. She likes to use her kicks to keep distance. She has a nice push kick. Just basically kicks that keep her opponent at bay. And then, when her opponent closes distance, she'll look to clinch up and look for knees to the body in the clinch. And Aldana, she comes in with that boxing foundation. She's very good at fighting on the back foot. She's not as effective or comfortable when she has to fight the front foot and has to press the issue, which was quite obvious in the Holly Holm fight. But she is very good at fighting off the back foot and, landing combinations. She likes the 1-2 at distance. She'll pop the jab out and then wait for you to try and get the jab back or throw a 1-2 back, just as, what's common when you throw a jab at someone. Generally, they're going to want to try and get it back. And then she looks to step back and then throw a combination from there. She has a nice counter too as well if the opponent wants to throw her jab. Also a really nice lead left hook which knocked out Ketlen Vieira cold. Also she'll frequently change levels and try and work the body, rips to the body, just straight body punches, mixes it up quite nice. And for the grappling for these two, so for Kunitskaya, I already talked about it, she gets in the clinch quite frequently. Aldana, when she gets in the clinch, she will hang on to that overhook in the clinch. She won't let it go, and that if opponents know how to take advantage of that and duck under and, take the back, they do. And that's how Holly Holm got it down a few times as well. She just kept hanging on to that overhook, and she really punished her for that. How these guys win fights, so for Irene, she seems to have good power, decent power for the division. She has good technique in her punches, so I guess that's where the power comes from. But you don't see too many one-punch KOs in women's MMA, and basically her one against Ketlen Vieira was a one-punch KO, basically, really. Also has pretty good takedown defense. You've got a chain wrestle if you want to take her down. And for Yana, I think it's her clinch work. She's good in the clinch. She's very active in the clinch. How these guys lose fights, so for Aldana, she's quite one-dimensional, and if her boxing isn't working, she doesn't really have a plan B to rely on, so, yeah. Also, she has I'd say subpar get-up game when you do get her down. She seems to not be very good off her back. And for Kunitskaya, she has subpar takedown defense. She gets taken down pretty easily. Path to victory for these two, so for Kunitskaya, look for the clinch and then, work in the clinch. Also look to mix in the takedowns in the open when she's advancing. And for Aldana, so look for forward pressure, get into boxing range and keep the pressure on, just landing combinations in boxing range, which is not something she usually does. As I said before, she's better off the back foot. But I think in this matchup, it would be the way to go, just because I believe Kunitskaya is quite uncomfortable when you put the pressure on her, and when you get in boxing range, takes away a lot of the kicks of Kunitskaya. She basically has to clinch, and if she does try and clinch, look to break the clinch and don't attempt any judo throws, because there's a chance they'll get reversed and then you'll end up on bottom, and yeah, that's not what you want. How I see the fight going, so I didn't actually watch the Ketlen Vieira versus Yana Kunitskaya fight live, and I saw people reacting to the decision, and a lot of people were saying, that's good, they don't want to see any lay and pray, and glad the judges are respecting damage a little bit more from bottom. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well. But then I watched the fight and I thought it was a really bad decision, really bad. Dominant grappling just simply doesn't get any respect anymore, and I think that fight was a prime example. It's blatantly obvious that the judges have never attended a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, and they don't understand the feeling of, someone on top of you and you're unable to get them off, and the person just controlling you just with technique. It's worse than it looks. It looks really easy, but it's very hard to control someone on the ground, and it just doesn't get any respect anymore. I mean, they gave Kunitskaya the round for basically winning the last 10 seconds of the round, with the ground and pound, and it was a superficial cut as well. It was a bit of damage, it was fair enough, but she had her back taken for 3 minutes in that round. She was getting controlled easily, just absolutely outclassed on the mat. She was getting mounted, had her back taken. She was just alternating those positions for about 3 minutes. And she just definitely wasn't striking effectively off her back when she was getting mounted and, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. And, judging cuts and superficial damage and aesthetic damage, that's a video for another day, but that's a whole other can of worms, so I won't get into that. I thought that was a really bad decision, and I didn't have any bets on that fight. I didn't have any dogs in that fight. I don't feel any way in particular to Yana Kunitskaya or Caitlin Vera, but these judges, they've been getting on my nerves a bit lately, you know? Like, why is it so behind closed doors? Why is the deliberation period so long after a fight? Just hand your shitty scorecards to Bruce Buffer. It should take around 90 seconds after the bell rings. You think about it, you've collected the whole, all the data you've accumulated in those 5 minutes, even though you've probably forgot the first part of the round, but that's neither here nor there. So just tally your score up, think about it, hand it to Bruce Buffer. I don't know why it takes 3 to 5 minutes, or about 3 minutes on average to, get these scores up. And I don't even know what these fuckers look like. Like, I want their face on the screen. I want them to have some accountability for their scorecards. And, there's a lot of repercussions to that. Fighters lose half their pay if they lose. And it's, fucking with people's livelihoods and fucking with people's careers. So I want to see what these fuckers look like. I want to see what Chris Lee, Sal Tomato, whatever his name is, and whoever else. I can't even recall most of their names because they're not highlighted very much. So I want to see some accountability towards these judges. I want to see them provide a little bit of justification maybe for the scorecards, and then would realize how, maybe just to the extent of how incompetent these judges are, but also how arbitrary the judging system is for MMA, and maybe we can, reform that after we get a better insight of what the judges are thinking as they're scoring fights. So, I think it is a problem that needs to be addressed. It's messing up with people's livelihoods, and I think judges should take greater responsibility. Now, would I want to become a judge? Probably not, because they don't get rewarded when they do make the correct decision, which I feel like they should do as well. They should be rewarded when they make a tough decision, but it is correct. So I do believe, it should go both ways, but also it's been going the other way for quite a bit now. Stylistically, I do believe Aldana should win this fight in the feet, especially if she stays on Yana and fights her in boxing range. I mean, Yana just has terrible hands, and I feel like she's extremely uncomfortable in boxing range. Even if she takes the back foot and just hangs at kickboxing range for the most part, she still should win on the feet. Yana needs to get into the clinch or get Aldana down, in my opinion. And I feel like that's the only position that Yana wins fights at, honestly. Like, I've watched about an hour of Kunitskaya tape, and I literally can't tell you where else she's good, because that's where most of her fights take place, and that's generally the only part where she has success is in the clinch, and if she happens to fall on top of her opponent and maybe get some top control that way. But the way I'm seeing this fight is that I think Aldana has decent anti-grappling, so I'm going to say Aldana keeps it on the feet and just outstrikes her for a 30-27 win. Likely isn't going to be a blowout, probably going to be competitive, but if Aldana gets in boxing range and manages to keep her there, I think she pummels Yana badly, because Yana is very uncomfortable in the pocket. She doesn't have good hands. She's going to want to clinch constantly. If Aldana starts hitting her with uppercuts, I think she could potentially fight a finish. But at this weight class, historically, I'm just going to say decision. Alright, so let's have a look at the betting lines. Alright, so prediction is Aldana by decision. I think she wins around 60% of the time. If she sticks to the game plan, she could look a huge favourite here, honestly. Bets I was looking at was Aldana at $1.75 for -135, which is what she's at the moment. It looks like it's heading towards a pick'em, honestly, which I'd be pretty happy about. I think that's good value on the pick'em. Props, let me have a look. Aldana by decision, but yeah, might as well not. I could definitely see her finishing Yana, honestly, but